Hello, and welcome back to Channel Zero TV with John and John. I'm John,
And I'm John.
and today we're going to bring you a classic, never produced film, the 1937 version of I, Claudius, starring Charles Laughton. This was a lost feature. It never got finished, never got released. And John, do you want to explain a little bit about why?
I, Claudius was optioned in Great Britain by the great Alex Korda, who was like in all of England the only movie mogul worthy of the name. And he had gone through a number of different script iterations and finally handed the whole project off to the director Joseph von Sternberg with the stipulation that he cast Korda's rising star, Merle Oberon, as Messalina. Now, somewhere in this process, they came up with Charles Lott to play Claudius. What happened was Merle Oberon, about 6 weeks into the production, was in a pretty bad car accident and was not able to work, and she had an extensive recuperation time forecast. So after much hemming and hawing, and based on the fact that there was a certain amount of conflict on the set between Lawton and von Sternberg, the decision was made to simply scrap the production entirely. And the film literally lay in canisters for years and years until the BBC found a number of the sequences in the mid-1960s and produced a very good documentary called The Epic That Never Was, which we, under our auspices of Channel Zero, screened at the Coolidge Corner Theater, I think back in 2003, if I'm
Oh,
not
that's
mistaken.
right. That's right. I forgot about that. Okay, well, let's see a clip, actually, a really powerful performance by Lawton in the role of Claudius. And this is from the lost 1937 version of I, Claudius. I'll be back soon to talk about it more.
Whether the Senate endorses our choice or not, I'm afraid it will be compelled to accept it.
Are you out of your senses? You freed us from the tyranny of a madman, only to deliver us into the hands of a stuttering idiot? We'd become the laughingstock of the whole world if we accept this dummy as emperor.
My lords, I respect the constitutional rights of this noble house and would only accept the acclamation of the army if this noble house elects me emperor. My Lord Sentius, I did not know you could also stutter. I thought your talents were confined to neighing like a horse. Is there anyone else who wishes to call attention to my misfortunes? Or shall I call attention to yours? Sentius, get up. Not only are you a pompous ass and a hypocrite, but you have acquired your position through bribery. Asiaticus, stand up. Not only are you a profiteer, but since we're dealing in personalities, you're a stuffed and puffed up glutton. You'd sell your soul for the tail end of an anchovy. Silius, get up. You're rarely heard and your name is never mentioned, but you control the Senate with gold accumulated by providing worthless grain to the people and faulty supplies to the army. Since no one else seems eager to show his eloquence, I will inform you of the conditions upon which I will accept your support. I, Claudius, will tell you how to frame your laws. Profiteering and bribery will stop. The Senate will function only in the name of Roman justice. And all of you who have acquired position dishonestly will be replaced by men who love Rome better than their purses. I will break everything rotten in the Senate like an old dry twig. On that basis only will I become your emperor. Now let me hear your objections. Now I will give the army the terms on which I will accept. Caligula was murdered. He ruled by force. But a state such as I hope to establish cannot condone murder. For violence is an enemy to justice. And in the name of justice, I call upon the murderers of Caligula to step forward.
We killed a tyrant, Caesar.
But you broke your solemn oaths as Roman soldiers to protect your emperor. You didn't strike for your country. You killed in the name of your own private grudges. I was with you, Cassius, when the tyrant kicked you, but you were not content with one single murder. You caused the death of Caligula's wife and of hundreds at the palace. What fate do you consider you deserve?
Death, Claudius.
For that answer, I will take your families under my protection. But for the crime of murder, I must sentence you, Cassius, and you, Lupus, to death. I will call upon the army to have that sentence executed.
Well, that was a really powerful performance of a really powerful scene. For those of you unfamiliar with I, Claudius, this was a novel, actually two novels written by Robert Graves, I, Claudius and Claudius the God, that depicted the life of Claudius, the fourth emperor of Rome, who took power not of his own free will, but after the murder of the mad emperor Caligula. Claudius was always a stutterer, and he managed to survive a number of palace intrigues, including murderous intrigues, while many more famous and capable relatives of the Emperor Augustus died or were killed. And at the end of it all, he ended up being acclaimed emperor by the Roman army. And this scene was depicting his choice to take the reins. And actually, as it turned out, he was one of the better Roman emperors, as history marked him. So there was a well-known series in the 70s. Before we get into that, John, do you want to talk a little bit about this movie and what was going on and why ultimately it did not get produced?
Well, I mean, a lot of critics seem to think that the car accident with Merle Oberon was more or less a pretext, that there was a great deal of tension on the set between Lawton and the director Joseph von Sternberg. The problem here is Lawton was sort of a method actor before there were method actors in the movies, either in Hollywood or England or any place else in the English speaking world, which meant, sometimes it took him a long time to figure out who or what the character was. And that process could be agonizingly slow, and it could eat up production time as he's figuring out voice, mannerism, and asking that cliched question, what's my motivation? But that was Lawton. He was a very painstaking actor who, like the best of actors, always acted from the inside out.
And the American director was really more into spectacle, is that right?
Well, it was Joseph von Sternberg, and Joseph von Sternberg was noted for two things. He put Marlene Dietrich on the map, and he was held to be like a very good director of women, of actresses. He was known as an actresses director, and he had directed a number of like big budget films. So I guess the feeling that the Corda organization had in England was, this guy will know how to put it all up there on the screen. But the problem with von Sternberg is he was sort of an old style film director in that he did not believe in actor autonomy. And Lawton is basically nothing but actor autonomy. Even in the documentary, The Epic That Never Was, they spoke to von Sternberg, who I guess was living in England at the time. And you could tell he had this very sort of icy regard for Lawton. I mean, I've gone back and forth about I, Claudius, the 1937 film, for a long time now because I revere Lawton. He's a tremendous actor. He may have been in bad movies. He's never bad in a bad movie.
Well, and that was a terrific performance. I mean, that was
Oh, God,
really
yeah.
emotional and moving and powerful in a sort of quiet way.
But I don't know if he could have sustained it throughout an entire 2 hour plus motion picture when he's at loggerheads constantly with his director. That's the question in my head.
And just remember the book and the series, the 1970 series, really followed Claudius's entire life literally from birth up through young adulthood. He was played by Derek Jacobi through, young adulthood up to being an old man. And it was a remarkable performance, but it was an extended performance through multiple stages in his life.
From what I've read, I think they were picking up Claudius's life about the time that Tiberius had like quit on Rome and went off to live, in his villa at Capri. So they were sort of picking up right about the time Sejanus was the rising capo regime in Rome. So they didn't have to sort of deal with Claudius as a teenager or anything like that.
And John and I are talking shop here because the 70s version was one of our favorites. We used to watch it at summer camp on a black and white TV and impersonate some of the emperors. A number of remarkable actors, Derek Jacobi, of course, and Brian Blessed, who, of course, moved on to his greatest performance ever in Flash Gordon. It was a sprawling story, some of the most remarkable television production ever. So I guess the question of whether this could have been the great movie version of that same story.
Yeah, like I said, I go back and forth about it. The other problem with I, Claudius, the film, is that Alex Corda, the producer, the mogul, was convinced this was going to be the perfect vehicle by which to make Merle Oberon as big a star as like Greta Garbo or Marlene Dietrich. But Merle Oberon was going to be playing Messalina. And at least insofar as the two novels is concerned, Messalina is Claudius's utterly faithless, duplicitous, scheming, adulterous wife. And I don't know if that's the sort of part that makes you like a global superstar on the order of like Greta Garbo.
If you are interested in seeing more, The Epic That Never Was, that is available, I believe, on YouTube. I, Claudius, the series, not sure which streaming service offers, if any, but that's really worth a watch. It's worth the investment. And of course, the Robert Graves novels, I, Claudius and I, Claudius the Gods. That's probably going back to the source material is probably your best bet of enjoying this really epic story. And with that, I'd like to sign off and say until the next time, I'm John.
And I'm John.
We'll catch you next time on Channel Zero TV.